Hello, welcome to my go live, second go live ever on this channel. Welcome to Escaping the Echo Chamber. And we're getting close to the end of the Chauvin trial, and here are my thoughts. Whether or not he's found guilty. Let's best case scenario, let's say he's found guilty. I don't think that changes anything. George Floyd, well, definitely doesn't change the fact that George Floyd is still dead. I don't think it changes anything around the country. It's a completely reactionary move. And if we even just look at the events of the past week or the revelations of the past week, because what's the stuff that's been revealed over the past week didn't just happen in the last week, but from the Lieutenant Nazario incident, Adam Toledo, just these are some of the examples that, yeah, just okay. So a cop gets convicted. Like cops have got in the past, cops have gotten convicted, but it seems like nothing's happening because nothing changes. And that's because, in my opinion, because this is just reactionary. And instead of just reacting, there needs to be some proactive action taken. So I do like that there is a greater push for ending qualified immunity. But once again, qualified immunity only comes into place after the cops have done something wrong. The cops have done something wrong, it's over, and now it's like, okay, now let's sue. And now they don't have an added layer of defense. Even at that point, let's say the lawsuit goes through, there's no guarantee the lawsuit wins. That's just, see, removing qualified immunity just means the lawsuit continues, the lawsuit proceeds. Doesn't mean that the judge is actually going to do their job. Doesn't mean that the government is actually going to hold the cop accountable. It's just removing one layer of and that layer was telling the cops, okay, there is no accountability. Now there's a question of whether or not there's accountability. But if these cops still feel, because it doesn't seem to be acting as a deterrent. All of the stuff that's happening, all of these protests, these marches, like it's brought some level of awareness, but things are moving way too slow. And that's the most charitable, the most generous explanation is that things are still moving way too slow for actual change to occur. You see, I realize what's happening. And it's in part because there are people who are involved who are controlling the narrative. And they are making this about police reform. It's bigger than police reform. But that word, by using that word police reform, because yes, it's the police that are, police that had his knee on George Floyd's neck. It's a police officer that had Eric Garner in a chokehold. But stop and ask the question, why did a police officer have Eric Garner in a chokehold? You see, once we start looking at this and stop letting the people that are, and once we stop letting certain people control the narrative, that's when we can start to find actual solutions. Because right now, there are people who want to make sure that the focus stays so narrow, so just only on a certain segment of the situation, because they don't want us to see the bigger picture. They don't want us to see their role in the bigger picture. And do you know who those people are? The politicians, the legislators, the executives, the mayors, the governors. These are the people that are giving the orders. These are the people that are making the policies, making the laws. These are the people that are sending the cops out there into the communities to wreak havoc. These are the people that are giving cops more and more power over the rest of our lives. So do you I saw Larry Sharp talking about what he feels the issue is, and he talked about fear. And in this instance, as regards fear, I disagree with him. I don't think the problem with regards to officers is fear. So I definitely see that people in their interaction with officers are afraid, but I don't necessarily believe that the officers are operating out of fear. See, the officers are saying they fear for their safety, but I believe that's a justification. That's just their standard. That's their standard reply to cover their ass. It's a CYA, cover your ass move. That's all it is. It's the same way when they're beating somebody with a nightstick, they're yelling, stop resisting. It's a cover your ass move. That's what they say to make it seem as if they need to be doing this, as if the person is a threat. Person could be unconscious and they're still swinging, talking about stop resisting. And this is like police departments all over the country. Like, so once you start seeing police departments all over the country doing the same things, you're like, wait a minute, they've actually been trained to do this. This isn't a secret. This is like a tactic. Yes, it's part of controlling a narrative. Because and where did cops get this information from? You guessed it, politicians. Because no one knows how to control the narrative better than a politician. And so when you see cops talking about, oh, I fear for my safety, I don't think they actually fear for the safety. In the vast majority of cases, that's their cover your ass move. Oh, okay. Well, that's why I did it. Because who made it the law that cops are allowed to use certain types of force if they fear for their safety? Who made that? What they're doing is they're reciting the terms of the law, of these policies. Those are, so that stuff is coming from your politicians, your legislators, your executives. So these are the people that are crafting the policy that, okay, a cop can't shoot an unarmed civilian unless they fear for their safety. And so what do you have? Every cop fears for their safety. It's not rocket science. It's not like if you just stop and think about it, you're like, wait a minute. Yeah. And once you stop and think about it, you can actually look at the people that are sitting here, are standing before you, getting in front of the cameras and saying, yes, police need to be held accountable, and say, wait a minute. Didn't y'all pass this law that the cops were enforcing? Didn't y'all write the law that allowed cops to kill people in certain circumstances? Didn't y'all do that? So how are you going to be leading the charge when no, you're the one we should be charging against. You're the one we should be marching on. That's why January 6th shook them so much. And this is why they use all kinds of language to describe January 6th as, oh, a white supremacist. What? Like, it doesn't matter how many white supremacists may or may not have been in attendance. That was not a white supremacist event. That was an anti-government event. That was an anti-Congress event. They were pissed off at Congress. They were pissed off, and they thought that their guy could change the thing, because they were being bamboozled the same way. See, what you had on January 6th was Donald Trump doing to Congress what most politicians, what these other politicians are doing to police officers every day of the week. He's passing the buck. So he's telling them the problems you're facing, all of your frustration, all of your fears, all of the chaos that you're feeling right now, it's them. It's their fault. And a lot of it was, but he helped. He signed that, what was that, the CARES Act? He signed that trillions of dollars of theft. He signed that law. He stood up and went after the only person trying to make sure everybody was on the record for their vote for that law. Yeah. So But he passed the buck. He passed the buck because that's why people were so upset. That's why people were so hopeless, so worked up, because their lives were in shambles. They felt like they saw their world crumbling around them and they needed to do something. And he convinced them that he was their hero. And the only way that something could actually get done, the only way they could be saved, was if they listened to him and marched on Congress. But that's what these politicians do. These politicians who are right there, who are giving the orders, and sending these and sending police departments into these communities to wreak havoc, they are the ones that then afterwards show up in front of the camera and say, "Oh, march on them. They're stop them. They have to be held accountable." Wait a minute. You have to be held accountable because you keep making these stupid laws that are giving these cops more power over our lives. You keep doing that. So let's go to Eric Garner. Why was Eric Garner killed? Eric Garner was killed because of sin taxes. Sin taxes on cigarettes that New York is charging exorbitant taxes on cigarettes, which creates a black market for people to go out of New York City, buy cigarettes, come back to New York City, and sell cigarettes cheaper than they bought them, and still cheaper than they're being sold in stores because of the taxes. And that's why the cops went after him. But who put in place the sin taxes? The legislatures. Who advocated for this? Do you know Bill de Blasio, who stood by Eric Garner's family and acted like he cared, like he gave a damn? He actually, after Eric Garner is dead, he doubled down on sin taxes and raised them even higher. He raised the sin taxes on cigarettes even higher after he sent cops to get Eric Garner killed. And then he stood with Eric Garner's family and pretended like he's their hero. And until we stop falling for the nonsense, until we stop letting these scumbags shift blame, point the finger, pass the buck, nothing changes. So Derek Chauvin, if he gets convicted, if he goes to prison, it doesn't change until we start looking at the people that are sending these cops, the people that are giving. Why do cops feel like they have the authority to do whatever? Why do they feel that? Because these politicians are giving them the power to do whatever. These politicians are giving them greater control over our lives. Oh, so if you're worried about young black men getting stopped by police, and the cops say, "Well, we have to check for a gun." Okay, stop passing these gun laws, because who's like a lot of people will say, Killer Mike says, worse than first. Who feels the brunt of these gun laws? Worse than first. Like Maj Toure will tell you every day of the week, all gun control is racist. But that's the pretext. These gun control laws are the pretext for which all of these, so many of these stops are happening. So many of these shootings are happening. Oh, we thought he had a gun. Well, listen, if the Second Amendment is respected and people are allowed, like, number one, you won't have to worry about people hiding guns. And people won't have to worry about being stopped, being tossed in prison for having a gun. People will be able to own guns and protect themselves and their families without fear of the police, without fear of being stopped for having the gun. But that's not on the cops. That's on the politicians who keep passing stupid laws. That's on the politicians who are sending the cops into these communities to wreak havoc. And until we turn our attention to these scumbag politicians and hold them responsible, nothing changes. Nothing changes till we look at the people who are actually calling the shots. Stop falling for for the okie doke. Stop letting them deflect attention, because that's all they're doing. They don't want you to look at them, despite the fact that they are responsible for all of this bullshit. That's who we need to be looking at. That's who we need to be holding accountable. That's the kind of reform. Fuck police reform. We need legislative reform. Fuck abolishing the police. We need to abolish Congress. We need to abolish these politicians who think they have the power to control every aspect of our lives and send their enforcer, their thugs, to do it. That's what we need to stop. And until we wake up and start looking at the people who are actually in control, who are actually causing these problems, nothing changes. So that's why I'm not impressed or worried about what happens with Derek Chauvin. Because Derek Chauvin goes to jail, nothing changes. Not until we start looking at these politicians who are making these laws, who are sending these cops into these communities. Not until we look at them do things start to change. And they're the ones that are responsible. They're the ones that need to be held accountable, because they are the problem. Eric Garner died not just because of Derek Pantaleo, but because of these sin taxes that were imposed and then heightened after his death. After his death, these sin taxes were heightened. And they pretend, oh, how did this happen? You ordered it. But if we keep allowing these politicians to get away with the foolishness, nothing changes. That's it for the live stream today. Thank you for checking it out. As always, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe. If you disagree with any or all of what I've said, give me a thumbs down. And don't forget, if you give me a thumbs down, don't just give me a thumbs down and run away. Give me a thumbs down and comment below why you disagree with me. And I'll address it either in the comments or in a future video. I'll see you next time.